the Mimer of Sukkot of Tafshin Lamed Tes, and we are talking all about refining the Goyim, refining the nations of the world, how we are impacting the Goyim. So what we did last time, the last point we were discussing was, how are we going to do this? I mean, this is cool, this is amazing, this is wonderful. Of course, we all want to refine 8 billion mankind, and we said this is the most important thing. This connects to Mashiach, Dira Bisach Toinim, the nations of the world, they're the Tachton, we're a fake out. So, of course, we want to reach the Goyim. Of course, we want the Goyim to so be inspired and love us that they praise Hashem for him being kind to us. Imagine what a transformative world when the Goyim are praising Hashem because he's good to us. That's what we want, and that's what's supposed to be, and how do we do it? So the last thing we discussed was we do it by accessing our Yechida. And we sort of forbrained on this idea. We pull out our Yechida with Mesiras Nefesh, with having a pleasure in Hashem. But when we pull out our Yechida, that is such a power that it will refine the Goyim. So now we're continuing this theme, and the Rebbe is going to discuss how Sukkot, as we've said already in this mimer, is a continuum. It's a continuation of Rosh Hashanah, Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, and Yom Kippur. So guess what? During Rosh Hashanah, Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, and Yom Kippur, we access our Yechida energies. And in Sukkot, it all is revealed, and through that, we do something else, which will then change the nature of the nations of the world. This idea that specifically we see in Sukkot, the refinement of the Goyim. Why do we say specifically in Sukkot? Well, as we learned in this mimer, over the days of Sukkot, we offer those 70 bulls, and those 70 bulls are refining the nations of the world, and we do the same thing nowadays when we daven, every day of Sukkot, as we daven Musaf, and we read about the offering of the bulls, we are offering those karbanos. The Neshama Paras of Haseinu, our lips offer those karbanos. So every day of Sukkot, we're offering karbanos today. Every day of Sukkot, meaning not today, today we're still up, but in our times, every year, when we daven Musaf on Sukkot, we are offering those karbanos, and those karbanos, the totality of the 70 bulls, is to refine the Goyim to the degree, as we say every day, we say complete Hallel on Sukkot. And what do we say in our Hallel? Hallel Hashem kol goyim, shavchu kol ha'umim, ki yikavar aleinu chasto. The goyim are praising Hashem because he's so kind to us. So what brings us Hallel? The Shivim Parim, the 70 bulls. So what we're doing on Sukkot is causing the refinement of the goyim. What's Sukkot? Sukkot is coming as a continuation of Rosh Hashanah, Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, Yom Kippur. Right after Yom Kippur, right? We all know, right when Yom Kippur's over, when you've got all this energy, of course, you're just right away supposed to start going building your sukkah. Because all that energy of Rosh Hashanah, which flows into Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, which culminates and coalesces in Yom Kippur, all that energy is now going into Sukkot. And that energy is what's creating our power to refine the Goyim through the Sukkot holiday. Now, of course, it doesn't mean we only do it on Sukkot. And obviously, every day of the year, we're supposed to be doing this avodah, but the primary time is Sukkot. So we just explained in the previous ayos that our refinement of the Goyim has to do with revelation of Yechida. We have 5 levels of soul, and the highest level is Yechida, and that level is what's causing the refinement of the Goyim. Well, that's what we're doing during Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, Rosh Hashanah, Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, Yom Kippur. We are accessing our Yechida. We say that the avodah of Aseret Yemei Teshuvah is Mima'amakim Kirasicha. From the depths, I call to you. And in terms of Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, what's the depths? Like Lashon Rabim? What's the multiple depth here? And we're told it's the depth of 2 levels of soul, of Chaya and of Yechida. So throughout Rosh Hashanah, the days between, and Yom Kippur, we are pulling on Yechida. That's actually the avodah. We're doing tshuva. We're creating a new year for ourselves, and we're accessing and pulling on Yechida to make it the best year possible. This idea of Rosh Hashanah, we don't always think of as an idea of tshuva, right? We think of Rosh Hashanah as Kabbalas HaMalchus, accepting Hashem as king. Then Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, okay, well that's true. And then Yom Kippur, well for sure, that's tshuva. But we're told no. Even Rosh Hashanah, as we start off Rosh Hashanah, and then it gets even stronger and more obvious over the week, and then it culminates in Yom Kippur, but those entire 10 days are 10 days of tshuva. which means 10 days when we are pulling on our Yechida to achieve this tshuva. Especially, of course, we see this in Yom Kippur because we know Yom Kippur is the idea of one, right? As Chassidus says many times, oneness of soul, oneness of place, oneness of time. The Kohen Gadol, who represents the oneness of soul. On Yom Kippur, the oneness of time. In the Kodesh Kodashim, the oneness of place. That synergy of time, space, and soul, Kohen Gadol, Kodesh Kodashim, Yom Kippur, that's the oneness of the day. So this energy of oneness, that's the energy of Yechida. Yechida is the oneness within us, that oneness of Hashem's oneness. So it began in Rosh Hashanah. It wasn't so obvious then. And then more in Seres Yemei Tshuva, we see it more. And then very strongly in Yom Kippur, obviously we would all say probably, Ne'ilah of Yom Kippur, you probably feel your Yechida. That's the idea of this very powerful, powerful energy. But really, the Rebbe says, in all these days, we don't feel it that much. It's happening, but we're not so aware it's happening. And that's actually endemic, meaning that's what it is. Like the verse says, in Tehillim it says, Bakasa liyom chagenu. Bakasa liyom chagenu is a pasuk that we always use in connection with Rosh Hashanah. That's Bakasa, the concealment, liyom chagenu, to the day of our holiday, to Sukkot. So Bakasa liyom chagenu, what starts out on Rosh Hashanah in a form of kisui, kasek, concealment, kas, concealment, liyom chagenu, on the day of our chag, on Sukkot, is revealed. So the pasuk is talking specifically about Rosh Hashanah. But in general, that whole energy of a Seres Yemei Tshuva, Rosh Hashanah, the days between the Yom Kippur, are all part of this bakasa, which means we're doing really deep stuff, but it's not revealed. And the revelation of what we've accomplished is what was manifest on Sukkot. That's why, for example, Chassidus says that there's an explanation that the schach of the sukkah come from the ketores, from the smoke of the ketores of the Kohen Gadol and the Kodesh Kodashim on Yom Kippur. Linking bakasa, what happened in Yom Kippur in a concealed way, the Kohen Gadol and the Kodesh Kodashim, is now manifest as the schach of our sukkah. Or another explanation is that the numerical value of schach, the 100, actually is created by the 100 koilos of the shofar of Rosh Hashanah. So what bakasa and Rosh Hashanah were blowing these koilos is manifest as the schach of our sukkah. So bakasa liyom chagenu, the spiritual avodos, the spiritual energies we draw down from Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur are liyom chagenu, are revealed on Sukkot. So the Rebbe is taking that concept, which is not at all an original concept to this Maimar, and you've probably all heard it before in many different contexts. And the Rebbe is saying that's what's going on now in terms of our Yechida. That from Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur, as we do the avodah of tshuva, mima'amakim karasicha, from my depth I call to you, from the depth of chaya, from the even greater depth of Yechida, that's all bakasa. It's happening, but I don't see it so much. Liyom chagenu, on Sukkot, all this Yechida energy is manifest. And it's a totally different experience when it's manifest. But what created it in the first place was Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur. The spiritual avodah, the tshuva. The Rebbe says it's like Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur is more an energy of crying. Sukkot is joy. Well, the Rebbe says that links to this whole concept because joy relates to something that's revealed. When something's revealed, exposed, it's joyous. When something is like hidden, it's not as joyous. So bakasa, when we're doing all this spiritual avodah of tshuva, it's bakasa, it's hidden, it's in our heart, it's our tshuva, it's our charata, it's our vido, it's our kabbalah haba. We're doing a lot of deep inner hard work. So it's concealed and it's with tears. When Sukkot comes, the energy is revealed. Whatever we created is now revealed, and because it's revealed, it's with joy. So bakasa, it's concealed, there's the tears, but it's tremendous spiritual energy. Let's schlep it into Sukkot, and then it's revealed, and then there's all the joy. So all the joy we feel on Sukkot is piggybacking on everything we accomplished from Rosh Hashanah on. But then we didn't see it as joy. It wasn't manifest as joy. It didn't feel like, didn't feel like that at all. It felt intense. It felt very looking at ourselves and scrutinizing and pushing, more Tehillim. It didn't feel joyous at all. But the energy we drew down when we have a manifestation of that energy is joy. So specifically in our context, the joy of Sukkot is the manifestation of the Yechida, that the Yechida we've been drawing down since Rosh Hashanah. So that whole Aseret Mei Tshuva, pulling on our Yechida, now it's like we can, so to speak, reap the benefits. Now we have the exposure. Now we have the manifestation. Now we have the joy. The Rebbe is really saying here that as we see it, we get happier and happier. So it starts off, we worked really hard for 10 days. And then again, right away, as soon as Yom Kippur's over, go build your sukkah, put all that energy into sukkahs. And in sukkahs, it's manifestation. And because it's manifestation, there's joy. And because there's joy, there's more manifestation, which means there's more joy, which means there's more manifestation. So it's not like we consciously understood what was going on. The Rebbe consciously understood what was going on. And he directed us to do things that put us in a space of such joy. But this is the reason why. This is what's really going on. This is the wiring behind the screen. This is really what's happening. That everything we worked and accomplished on all of Aseret Mei Tshuva is now shining. That's the joy. Well, I didn't know that. We were just happy. They were saying that's the joy. And then because it's revealed, it's so much more joyous. And because it's so much more joyous, it's so much more revealed. And because it's so much more revealed, it's so much more joyous. So it just goes and goes and goes and goes to this amazing crescendo effect of all the revelation, which is all the joy, which is all the revelation, which is all the joy. All the revelation of what? Of the Yechida that we accessed through all that hard spiritual work of Aseret Mei Tshuva. So it's almost like, there was not saying as per, but in essence, it's sort of like as per, as we accomplish and pull out the Yechida during these days, that's the manifestation, and that's the joy of Sukkot. The Rebbe now takes this and pulls it back into the two avodas we discussed in the beginning of the Maimer, which was sitting in a sukkah and Daled Minim. So before I make that connection, because I know I've just been talking nonstop, does anyone have any questions, any comments, any reflections? Okay, hopefully that means it was perfectly clear. So now we understand spiritually the energy of Sukkot. The energy of Sukkot is Yechida revealed, right? That's what we just established. What do we do Sukkot with that energy? Well, there's two things we do, as we discussed in the beginning of this Maimer. We do an avodah called sitting in the sukkah. We do an avodah called the Daled Minim. If you remember, the Rebbe said in the beginning, when Sukkot comes in, right away starts the clock of Yeshiva Basukkah. Right away, from the first moments of the holiday, you have the opportunity to sit in the sukkah and be surrounded by Makif and Dabina and all that amazing stuff. The next morning, you have the opportunity to do Daled Minim. That showed us already then that there's a hadraga. There's a ladder here. There's scaffolding. First, we can do sukkahs, the avodah of sitting in a sukkah, and then we ascend to a higher sukkahs avodah and do the Daled Minim. And then in the afternoon, we ascend to be mark of the karbanos. In the times of Beis HaMikdash, the animals, nowadays by our tefillos. So we start off with sitting in the sukkah, and then we ascend to the Daled Minim, and then with all that energy, we can pray, offer the karbanos that are refining the goyim. So we said this in the beginning of the Maimer, that the sukkah and the Daled Minim are what's allowing us to impact the goyim. Now we can sort of understand why. We said last week in Zion, what refines the goyim? The revelation of Yechida. Well, what are we doing with that revelation of Yechida? Well, from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur, we were just bringing it down for our cries, for our tears, for our tshuva. Now it's manifest in what? It's manifest in Achdus. Exactly. It's manifest in Achdus. Because we said in the beginning of the Maimer that the avodah of Sukkot, of the Daled Minim, and of the Sukkah was Achdus. And why is our Achdus so powerful? Because it's an Achdus fueled by the Yechida that we uncovered and slept out and exposed through all the cries and tshuva of Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur. So we said then, we said this in the beginning of the Maimer, that's a very different type of Achdus, the Sukkah Achdus and the Daled Minim Achdus. The Sukkah Achdus, if you remember, is Kol Yisrael Re'uim Le'Shebesh Sukkah Achas. All the Yidden can sit in one sukkah, right? That's a quote the Rebbe loves. So it could be, imagine, I guess that's going to be by the scholars of Mashiach, we're all going to sit in the sukkah from the skin of the Levyasan. All the Yidden, 15 million of us, we all could sit in one sukkah. Which means a makif dika achdus. Why makif dik? Because that's what the sukkah is, right? It's surrounding us. So what happens on the level of makif? On the level of makif, our differentiation is irrelevant. It doesn't make a difference. We're all in the sukkah. You're rich, you're poor, you know so much, you know so little, you do so much, you do so little, you're so refined, you're so not. It doesn't make a difference. We're all in the same sukkah. We're all sitting in the same sukkah. All Klal Yisrael. We're all the same. Because the energy of sukkah as a makif koyach is bigger than our differences. Our differences aren't really very relevant. We're too small, and therefore our differences are way too small for it to be impactful. So we all sit in the sukkah. We're all one because the energy of sukkah is a makif energy that doesn't get inside of me. If it got inside of me, we start getting in trouble. Because when something gets inside of me, it has to squish, get small enough, constrict, and then, because it's small now, the light's small enough to get in me, suddenly differentiation is relevant. Just like differentiation in me is relevant, right? My neshama goes to my mind, and my ruach goes to my heart, and well, why? Oh, because the neshama is different than the ruach, is different than the nefesh, and the ability and accessibility and expressiveness of the mind versus the right side of the heart versus the liver, well, they're all different. And these levels are all different, and this matches to this and doesn't match to this. So that means when we start getting into me, it gets a lot smaller. And it gets small enough that differentiation is differentiation. It's real. So when we're talking about a makif koyach, a big, vast, encompassing power, it's not so relevant. So, Ruim Koyes relationship with Sukkah Achas, all the Yidden can sit in the same Sukkah. It doesn't make a difference where you are on the ladder. It is irrelevant, the ladder. There is no ladder. You're all the same. It's like Hashem is so big, we are so small, our differentiations are so minor. We have Achdus, but it's a Makif Achdus. So Makif on one hand means a very great power, but practically speaking, it has a weaker impact on me because it's Makif. It's outside of me, so it's not impacting me the same. So we start off the holiday taking this koyach of Yechida and plugging it into the vehicle of Achdus as manifest by the sukkah, because the sukkah is makif and it symbolizes all the Yidden in the same sukkah, this big powerful energy for which all our differentiation is completely irrelevant. We're all the same. The next morning, we're ascending. We said we're like scaffolding. So now we could do a more difficult Achdus. Like it's easier to love the Yid across the ocean than the one next door. You know, across the ocean, you don't really see the differences. You don't really see them. So it's fuzzy. I'm a Jew, you're a Jew, it's beautiful. Your next door neighbor, the one that lives in the house with you, we see a lot more closely and we notice the differences. So now we're ascending to do a harder avodah, to be ba'achdus with our differences. Within myself, I have differentiation, like a heart versus, and within other people, we have differentiation. And people that you're so similar to, there's differences. And kal v'chomer, people that you're not so similar to, or groups you're not so, levels and levels and levels and levels and levels. And the beauty is, it doesn't make a difference. We could still be ba'achdus. And that's, of course, what's symbolized by the Daled Minim, where the Daled Minim, Lulav, the Esrog, the Dasim, the Aravos, that's what they symbolize. This type of Jew versus this type of Jew versus this type of Jew versus this type of Jew. And we're all one. You can only do the mitzvah if we're all in it together. It symbolizes the 4 levels of our soul. And it only works if we have all those levels together. It symbolizes 4 levels of Hashem L'mayla, Atzilus B'ri Yitzir Asiya. And that also only works if we have all the levels together. So, is there a difference between Atzilus and Asiya? Absolutely. And we need it all. Is there a difference between my Nefesh and my Chaya and Yechida? Absolutely. And I need it all. Is there a difference between the Jew that has Torah and mitzvahs and the Jew that doesn't have Torah and doesn't have mitzvahs? Of course. And so what? We're all needed. We're all one. So
but Cyril, I have a question
Sure.
here. So that this makif dika achdus, but it's still like nevertheless you are still sitting in the sukkah with perhaps many different kinds of eating. Like you're actually doing something which tangibly, like really tangibly, it can make you aware of and express that achdus. Whereas shaking the Daled Minim, like you have to kind of have learned that, you have to have that in mind. it's like it's more of a symbolic thing. So why is it that that's makif, even though it's more symbolic, whereas sitting in the actual sukkah together with, maybe 50 Jews, 100 Jews, 1,000 Jews who are very different from you, is more tangible? Why is that the makif one, and the one that's more symbolic is the more pnimi?
I hear what you're saying, but both of them are symbolic, meaning most Jews do not sit in a sukkah with 1,000 other Jews that are different than them. Most Jews are sitting in the sukkah with their
And,
family
and, and
who are
unless you're
similar
at
to
a
them,
Chabad house,
and
unless
their
you're at a
friends
Chabad
who are
house one.
similar to them, and their shul members who are similar to them. We're Chabad, so we're used to the concept of, if you live in Crown Heights, you open up your sukkah and say, call Dichsvin, whoever wants to come, grab something to eat. I had many years, most of my years, almost all my years in Crown Heights, I never have a sukkah, and yeah, we go in and grab a corner and something. Yeah, 100%. That's a very unique Chabad in Chabad house, Chabad having no place to be in Crown Heights. Sukkahs. For most Klal Yisrael, that's not what Sukkah seems like. It's not their experience. So both are symbolic, but symbolism is real. The fact that all Jews can be within the Sukkah and the Sukkah walls surround us, that symbolism is real. And therefore the energy is makif. We know it's makif and debina, right? The Sukkah is makif and debina. It's a makif energy. We're within it. It's like the mikvah. The energy of the lulav and esrog is, forget about all the symbolisms, 4 types of Klal Yisrael, 4 levels of soul, 4 levels lamaila. You're taking 4 different types of species of produce of the earth that are very different, right? From the fruit that has this so beautiful, it has a smell, it has a taste. The willows have nothing and nothing. These 4, forget their symbolisms. On the very physical level, these 4 things are so different. And to do the mitzvah, you got to put them all together and bind them together and shake them together. And that physicality is reflecting the spiritual energy. So the physicality is real and the spiritual energy is real. The physicality of the sukkah is real, reflecting the real makifim debina. I'm thinking what you're saying is sort of triggering, which wasn't exactly a question at all, because most of us don't have, or many people don't have, sitting in the sukkah and like being surrounded by 1,000 different Jews. But I think it sort of goes back to Simchas Beis HaShoeva that we discussed in the beginning of this mimer. I think Simchas Beis HaShoeva, in a sense, could be like that sukkah experience, because you have all these Jews that are so different, dancing together and loving to dance together. In a sense, I look at it and say, oh, that's like the lulav and esrog, because we're aware of the differences and we b'dafka embrace the differences. But on another level, I'm thinking it's like the sukkah because it's a very makif experience. In the middle of the night, there's this loud music, you're dancing, you're embracing everyone. Trust me, in the broad daylight of 11 o'clock the next morning, you might not be as friendly. But in that space and in that time, you just feel this like embracive achdus. That to me is sort of feeling like the sukkah. It's an embracive achdus. Now, of course, you could have the fusion of the pnimi and the makif, and that's the best of both worlds. And maybe that is what's happening, Simchas Beis HaShoeva. Maybe there is this pnimius change, and there is a difference. And if you did meet someone 11 o'clock the next day, you would, feel warmer to them. And who knows? It's so hard to tell. I'm not making a judgment in either case, but I'm just saying somehow that Simchas Beis HaShoeva, I think definitely the Rebbe set up for Sukkah, for Daled Minim, or for both. Because it's sort of, I could see it as just a human embodiment of some of these experiences. Which I think is what Yun Rivka's point was, which I guess is why I was thinking about that. But what we're saying here is, when you are sitting in your sukkah at home and the only one around is your family, you are drawing down this makif koyach of achdus. Because that's the power of a sukkah. As we see, it's makif us the walls. And the next day, when you shake that lulav and esrog, ideally in a sukkah, you are, by taking this fruit and this produce and putting them together, you are accessing the energy of achdus within the differentiation. There's differentiation. Lots of differentiation in our world. Goal isn't to wash everyone to look the same. Everyone fit in the same box. We're exactly the same. The same, no, that's not achdus. We could be so different and have such achdus. And that's a lot harder. And that's therefore the pnimi achdus. The pnimius achdus is when you do see the person up front really close and they really are so different from you and you can be so embracive. That's a much higher, aka harder Achdus that we achieve after first achieving the Makif Achdus. So we get the Makif Achdus energy. I could be one, not realizing we're so different. And then I could ascend to the harder Pneumius Achdus energy. It's Pneumius, it's coming inside of me. Inside of me, it's small enough. Inside of me, I see I'm different than you because it's very small now. It's when it's so big, I don't notice. It's not that I don't notice. It is not noticeable. When it's big, it's not noticeable. When it's small, it's very noticeable. But I have the power of my Yechida, which I access for 10 days, what I accomplished the night before sitting in my sukkah, that now I could ascend to a much harder avodah, making it small enough to get inside of me. And therefore, since it's so small, the differences really do matter. Still, we could have Achdus. Because the mitzvah is only accomplished when we're all together. Achdus with the 4 types of Jews, Achdus within ourselves, the 4 levels of soul, Achdus of the Hashem L'mayla with all these different levels of Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya, on all planes, differentiation and Achdus. And that enables our refinement of the Gaya.
What's the practical Achdus? Sitting in a sukkah does feel practical, like, wow, we're all here, and yeah, I don't have to care too much about your individual characteristics. So what's the practical, Pnimi Achdus, besides for, I don't know, saying good Yom Tov to people and Shul the next day? Like, I don't know.
I think we encounter that practical, like, every day of our lives when we're not in our house, not seeing people. But I think when we see people, that's always
And in our house too.
in your house too. You see people in our house. Yes, yes. We're not alone in our island. We got other people floating around. I think
some of them are different from us.
some of them are different from us. Most of them are. Most people are. Every Jew is different, right? That's what it said about Yehoshua. Praise was that he could deal with every person because every person is so different. It's like we say about, there's one of the brachos we'll say about Mashiach, Chacham Harazim. When we see, it says, if you see 600,000 Jews gathered together, you make a special bracha. One of the 6 brachas we'll say by Mashiach, Chacham Harazim, the wise one of the secrets. What is this? Hashem as the wise one of the secrets when there's 600,000 Jews? Because we're a gathering of 600,000 people, and every single one's a secret. Every single one is different. Every one of us is different from every other person. We're all a raz. We're all a secret. We're all unique. We're all different. And we're praising Hashem. Wow, you like you found a different mold each time. Like each time you found a different human being that you could create and compose from all these different elements. Like, I mean, didn't you run out of options? No, Chacham Harazim, Hashem does not run out of options. Where every Jew is a raz, every Jew is a secret. So I think the practical manifestation primarily on Sukkot, which is Shani's practical question, and this is the real question, is being ba'achdus with people that I feel very strongly are different than me. I would think of it like the practical manifestation of the makif achdus is like being ba'achdus that I'm not aware of the differences. And I think the daled minim achdus is being ba'achdus when I am aware of the differences.
And that's why you said that's why it's much harder.
Yes.
Takes a lot more. Yeah.
Yes, it's harder, it's higher. That's why we went from the sukkah to the daled minim, because it is harder. Just like we have so much love for the Jew we don't know, and it's hard for us sometimes to have love for the Jews we know. Jews you don't know them. It's easier. You can have love. You can be embracive. You can be warm. They can come to your Shabbos table. You still don't know them. You still can be warm and loving and embracive. Yeah. And then as we know people, it's harder. It's harder. We're less tolerant, we're less forgiving, we're less focused on being so warm. And that, I would think, is a practical manifestation, meaning I think there's a certain level of practical manifestation in sitting in a sukkah and doing the mitzvah daled minim. Those are the key mitzvahs that draw down this energy. Again, think of the dynamic of what's going on here. We pulled out the energy with the Yechida from the 10 days of work. Fueled by the Yechida, I'm now accessing all this achdus in the sukkah and all this achdus even higher in the daled minim. So practical manifestation, sit in a sukkah and shake the daled minim. And then behavioral manifestation for ourselves is these 2 levels of achdus. So maybe if you're in Crown Heights and you're in 770, you have all these opportunities to remember this. There's so many challenges to your achdus. Beautiful. You say, Hashem, that's how you structure this whole thing. So many opportunities to try to really focus on my achdus. But I'm sure you don't have to be in 770, you don't have to be in Crown Heights to have opportunities. Now we're up to ice test. The Rebbe explains why this all works. We said pulling together everything of the Maimer, that Sukkot is about refining the Goyim, as we see in the Hallel, as we see in the Karbanos. We refine the Goyim through the manifestation of our Yechida. We manifested our Yechida, Bakasa, in a form that we didn't see it manifest through the 10 days from Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur.
Take
Take that energy and put it into Sukkot, and then it's revealed, and it's joyous, and it's revealed, and it's joyous, and we take all that revealed, joyous Yechida energy, and we put it in Achdus. We put it in the Achdus of sitting in the Sukkah and having that type of Achdus and having that type of Achdus with people in our world. And then we proceed harder, higher to the Achdus of Daled Minim, which we access by doing the Daled Minim. That's how we access it. And we behave in that harder, higher fashion of really knowing there's a really important time, and therefore I'll probably be challenged, and I gotta win, and I gotta succeed, and I've gotta be B'Achdus, and I'm gonna see your differences, and I'm gonna be B'Achdus anyway. That's in essence what we've said so far in this very practical, powerful mimer. Now the Rebbe is explaining in Ois Tes why. Why does it work? Why is this Achdus going to refine the Goyim? Right? The whole goal here is we gotta bring Mashiach. We got to change the Tachton. The Goy is the Tachton. We've got to get that Tachton to reveal Hashem. When the Goy, Baruch Tiyeh Mikol Amim, says, Hallowed is Hashem Kol Goyim, Shebchu Kol Umim, Gavar Aleinu Chasto, and the Goyim say, my gosh, Hashem, you're so awesome, you're so good to Klal Yisrael. We change them. How? Through the empowered by our Yechida Achdus of Sukkos. Well, why did that do that? So that's what the Rebbe is now going to explain. If we remember a quote that the Rebbe brought in a few times already in this mimer, that already on Rosh Hashanah, we know we're victorious over the Goyim because they see us with our lulav and esrog, right? That was a medrash that was actually in the first ice of this mimer. We discussed it then, and it's been referenced since, that from Rosh Hashanah to Sukkot is one continuum because the Goyim, seeing us with our lulav and esrog, are like, okay, they're the winners. And they agree we're the winners. And now we understand seeing with our lulav and esrog means seeing our achdus. Seeing our Pnimius Achdus. Remember, it got small enough so differences matter, and we still are B'Achdus. So when it's obvious that we are B'Achdus, that's what's impacting the Goy. Why? Because in essence, Jews are not part of his chalkos, of differentiation. And this I thought was a fascinating concept that the Rebbe said here. We are, you might be shocked to hear this, I was, we are in essence, one. We're not in essence differentiation. How can we say that? Doesn't seem that way. We always speak about Achdus as it's so hard because it's so important because it's so hard. And what the Rebbe says is, it's our natural state. Jews come from Shem Havaya. Everything else in creation comes from Elokim. It's all Memale, it's all Elokim. Elokim is Rabim, Elokim, the Yud Mem, multiplicity. Elokim Mimale creates spiritual worlds of multiplicity, physical world of multiplicity, goyim of multiplicity. And then there's the Jew. The Jew is from Havaya. And we see this on two levels. First, we see this because we're told, Atem ha'ma'at mikol ha'amim. You are the least of all the nations, right? One Jew, one nation in the 70 wolves of the world. We're 0.0 something of the world's population. Now, if you ever looked at the newspapers, you would never realize that. You would probably think the Jews are like 70% of the world's population with all the attention and focus we get, or maybe at least a good 35. No, 0.0 something. So in terms of numbers, we're not the reboy. We're not the multiplicity. We shouldn't be taking up all the space and making all the noise. So it seems like we do. We're small. Quantitatively, we're the smallest. So that shows we're not reboy. And also, on a more spiritual, deeper level, all Jews form one organism. Koma acha shlema. Gans Klal Yisrael is one body. We're all parts of the body of Klal Yisrael. All 15 million of us. In essence, all Jews that ever lived are part of the body of Klal Yisrael. So in terms of our numerical count, we're small. We're not reboy. We're not multiplicity. We're small. And in terms of our dynamics, we're really small. We're one. The Goyim, by definition, are differentiation, right? I think of Esau versus Yaakov, right? Remember, Yaakov had 70 people, but they were all Yachid, Lashon Yachid, Shivim Nefesh. because we're one in essence. We form one body, the body of Klal Yisrael. So for both of those reasons, numerically we see we're small, smaller than the multiplicity of the Goyim. And in terms of the dynamics of self, that we all form one organism, both of those things are not the reason. They're a manifestation of our spiritual truth. Because we come from Havaya Echad, because we come from the oneness of Havaya, we are one. And therefore, in the world, we're such a small number because we're not part of the multiplicity of the world. And therefore, all Jews form one body because we're Havaya Echad. So I thought this was such an amazing thought because generally we think of Achdus as something so foreign to us, so difficult, like so ungraspable. And what the Rebbe is saying here is, let me introduce you to yourself. This is who you are. This is who you are in your spiritual wiring. You can't deny this. You can't move away from this. This is you. And that's why numerically, quantitatively, we're so much smaller than all the nations around us. And that's why all Jews form one body, because we're from Havaya Echad. But that's not true for the Goyim. That's actually not true for anything else but the Jewish people. We're from Havaya. Basically, everything else is from Elokim. Elokim, now Havaya, it says Havaya Echad. Achdus. Elokim, as we said, it's Elokah with the Yud Mem to mean multiple. Elokim expresses God in multiplicity. And that's why Elokim is the spiritual energy that we call Memale. What is Memale? Soivev is an energy very big, an encompassing energy, that doesn't get into the details. It gives you existence. But Memale is small enough to differentiate and have all the details. And this becomes an angel, and this becomes a spiritual world, and this becomes a pencil. This Memale is different than that, because Memale sees all the differences. All the spiritual worlds. 4 spiritual worlds, Atzilus, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiya, manifestation Memale. They're all different. Everything in Olam Hazeh Gashmi, manifestation Memale. It's all different. Goyim, manifestation Memale. Lots of Riboy. Lots of them, and very differentiation among them. It's all expressive of Elokim, Mimale, Riboy, Hischalkus, everything in our entire existence except the Jew. The Jew is Havaya Echad. Can you think of that vision of that like one sheep in the 70 lamb? The Jew's that one sheep. The Jew's Havaya. And you know what? We have the power. Nothing in the world can really have true Achdus but the Jew. Because we're the only ones from Havaya. We are different. We can access Havaya. Nothing else can. Nothing else, meaning no Malach can. No spiritual Olam can. No, nothing in the physical or spiritual worlds can. None of the spiritual worlds can access Havaya. They're all from Elokim. Only the Jew is from Havaya. But yet, Hashem created us deliberately, so it seems on the surface that we do have this differentiation component. As we were just saying, we're so different, and it's so hard to be one because we're so different, and sociologically, and this, and this, and this, and this. I don't have to prove it to you, we know it. So all of that difference is so chitzonius. It's so superficial. It's not real. We're from Havaya. Havaya Echad. We're in essence Achdus. But Hashem B'Dafka, for a good reason, gave us a bridge to Riboy, to Hischalkus, to differentiation, to multiplicity. Why? Because I can take my innate Achdus, which is me, especially on Sukkot, when I'm empowered by my Yechida, and I have these 2 mitzvos that I'm doing every single day of Sukkot, and I'm taking the Yechida energy and putting into the Achdus of Makif, and I'm taking the Yechida energy and putting into the Achdus of Hischalkus. And I'm accessing all this Yechida in Achdus and Achdus and Achdus. I'm uncovering who I am, and I'm putting it within the Hischalkus of self, of Jew to Jew Hischalkus, of a Lulav versus an Esrog versus Hadass versus a Ravos Hischalkus. So when we do that, we're the power pack of the world. We're the energy of the world. So when the Jew, who innately is Achdus, but has a manifestation that seems Hischalkus, differentiation, multiplicity, different, when on Sukkot we do our avodah, sitting in the sukkah, Daled Minim, making a very strong point to be be'achdos where there's difference. I'm taking all my Havaya Echad energy and I'm using it to illuminate differentiation, his chalkos, multiplicity. And when we do that, it trickles into the whole spiritual world and even the physical world and even the Goyim. So when the Jew takes Havaya and uses the power of Achdus to illuminate the Jews' differentiation, now that spills over to Elokim. It trickles into Elokim. It trickles into Memale. It trickles into all the angels. It trickles into the 4 Olamais. It trickles into everything going on in differentiation. Olam Hazeh Gashmi. It trickles into the Goyim. And that's how our Avodah on Sukkot refines the Goyim. Because the Achdus that we're accessing from Havaya will get as far as changing from his Chalkus to Achdus as much as they can of the Goyim themselves. And that's the accomplishment of the birur of our karbanos, of our tfilos, of the Shivim Parim, the 70 bowls throughout Sukkot, to refine and change the Goyim, that they will truly praise Hashem for being kind to us.